right along, and speaking of Pardon My Take, you had a guest this week who's been on everything except this show. Julian Edelman making the rounds in support of a documentary that debuts tonight on Showtime. And one of the issues that came up, and I'm sorry I haven't listened to the Edelman interview on Pardon My Take yet, but one of the things that's bothered Chris Sims and me, he's got a 4-game suspension for PED use. He's never really explained what happened. You know, usually we get I got a supplement that was tainted. We haven't even gotten that from him. Now, maybe you did or maybe somebody else did. I haven't seen it written. I haven't heard anything about it. But PED suspension isn't a marijuana suspension. It means you took something that is deemed to be extra and above what you should be taking. It falls into the category of cheating, and I feel like he's just skated on this one. Yes, he missed the 4 games, but he's never had to discuss it. I don't think he's gotten asked many questions about it. It's almost like it never even happened, but for the fact that he missed 4 games.
Well, it helps that when you play for the Patriots, you don't have to talk to the media very often, and you can kind of skirt these questions by basically doing the Patriot way. We did talk to him. We danced around it. We talked about how his father didn't talk to him for a few months afterwards. And I think that, if you kind of deduce how we spoke about it, the pressure he felt knowing that Bill Belichick will cut a guy, even if he has won him a couple Super Bowls, I think he almost alluded to the fact that maybe he did do something that was trying to get an edge, trying to get his rehab back. I also think, Mike, to speak honestly, the PEDs in the rehab always are treated a little differently than PEDs, just PEDs, right?
But should they be? Should they be?
I'm not here to judge whether it should or should not be that way, and I get your point that it probably should be brought up a lot more.
What do you mean? You're here to judge everything. It's what we do. You're not here to judge it. Come on, man. Take a stand.
No. What I'm saying is I'm stating a fact that it is treated differently. I'm not telling you whether that's right or wrong.
But it's not treated differently. But treated differently.
Okay, fine. I will take a stand. I have less of a problem with guys doing PEDs to come back from injury. So there's my stand. I do. That's just a fact for me. I personally, if a guy gets injured playing a really violent sport and it's really hard to come back from injury, and exactly that pressure, knowing that the NFL will cut you and you will be out and there's not guaranteed contracts, I have less of a problem with a guy doing PEDs when he's coming back from injury versus a guy who's doing PEDs to just get an edge when he's already healthy. So there it is. There's my stand.
I know, but an edge is an edge. And until the NFL and the NFLPA sit down and negotiate an exception. And look, Kurt Warner has gotten on board with it this week. Sims has advocated the idea of a very limited window of injuries and a limited window of PEDs that could be used to help you recover, but that would take them off the banned list. As it stands, if it's on the list and you take it, you're done. And the NFL and the union have yet to acknowledge that there is an exception for guys coming back from injury. Maybe there should be. Until there is, though, you're no different than the guy who's saying, man, if I was just a little bit faster, if I was a little bit stronger, maybe I'd be a starter instead of a backup. It's still cheating because it's an ultimate competition, and whatever Julian Edelman did to put himself back on the field, that took away someone else's chance to perform and to thrive because Edelman cut corners to ensure that he'd be ready to go.
You're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's not cheating. I'm not saying that Julian Edelman was right or saying he didn't deserve a suspension. What I'm saying is your original question, why isn't he being asked this more often? Why isn't it being brought up more often? I personally don't think it is as big of a deal if you do PEDs to come back for injury, and I think it is treated differently by the media, by Twitter, by fans, and you will not get the same questions that you would have gotten if you got busted for PEDs in the middle of a healthy season. That's just the reality of it. That's where I'm coming at. I'm trying to answer the question of why he hasn't been asked it more often, and that's honestly how I feel.
62% of the people who responded to a poll question we had on Twitter this week agree with you. 38% say there is no difference. 62% say there is a difference. Ultimately, there isn't a difference in my assessment. I can understand why someone would be tempted to do it, and maybe the deeper conversation here is the pressure that is put on guys to come back and play, because if you don't, you will lose your job. Bill Belichick will dump you, and so it's not a difficult. Think of the analysis. Okay, I can get myself ready to go, and I'm playing a mini game of Russian roulette here that I'm going to get caught and I'll miss 4 games. But you know what? I'll be ready to go for the other 12 games, and maybe I'll be ready to go for the postseason, and maybe we'll win the Super Bowl, and maybe I'll be the MVP. It's an easy, as justification goes, it's an easy bridge to cross to say, I'm going to go ahead and take that PED.
Absolutely. And my question to you is, do you think guaranteeing money, guaranteeing contracts, insuring contracts against injury, do you think that changes the dynamics a little bit? Because, you know, if you're talking about baseball or basketball or even hockey, when you get injured, you know that money that you signed for is still coming in. You know that you're going to still be paid that money. When you get injured in football, it's very hard to come back. The average, you know, lifespan of a football career is what, 2.5 years or whatever it may be. Injuries are very difficult when you have a league that's getting younger and younger, and the way everything is structured, teams want to get younger and pay guys less. Do you think there's an element of, if they figured out a way to guarantee these contracts, guys would the calculations would be a little different. The risk would not be, you know, you wouldn't want to take that risk on your career, on your reputation, if you knew you were going to get paid no matter what.
That's a good point. I have 2 points to make in response. First of all, if there were guaranteed contracts, the contracts generally will be shorter, and it's entirely possible that when Julian Edelman tore his ACL, he would have been in the last year of his contract, so there would have been no protection anyway. And for any player out there that's clamoring for guaranteed contracts, you're not going to get a 6-year fully guaranteed contract. You're going to get 3 at the absolute most. Most contracts will be 1 year at that point, and you'll have the freedom to move, but you're not going to have that security that protects you against a serious injury into the next year. Second point is this. Edelman did have a contract that covered him into 2018, and under the current CBA, there is an allowance there that you can make a large percentage of your money if the injury that affected you the 1 year carries into the next year. That still isn't, that's not much of a consolation because you just want to play, right? And you're still making less money than you would have made. But there is some protection that's currently baked in, but not enough. But if it was a truly guaranteed contract, Bill Belichick may not be handing out more than a 2-year contract to anyone, and Edelman may not have had that protection in any event.
Okay, I'm not a capologist, and I don't really claim to understand the ins and outs of the financial part of the game, but let me just throw this out there. What if there is a salary cap? What if there are guaranteed contracts? But if a guy gets injured and you cut him, it doesn't count against your salary cap anymore. So you have the ability to pay guys for 4 or 5 years, because guess what? We know the NFL is making a ton of money. We know these owners are making a ton of money. The willingness to pay them, I think, would be less about the money and more about you don't want to hamper yourself for 4 years out when a guy could get injured or end up being bad and you can't get any relief from your salary cap and you can't go pay someone younger who's better. So if you guaranteed the contracts, but you had that in there where if a guy gets hurt or if you want to cut a guy just outright, you still have to pay him, but it doesn't count against your salary cap. I don't know, there's probably a million ways that doesn't work, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, and here's the thing. It operates under a premise that the teams are restraining themselves from overspending, and they're all pressed up against the top of the cap. One of the dirty little secrets right now in the NFL, there are plenty of teams that are hoarding cap space because they are hoarding dollars. You only have to spend 89 cents of every dollar under the salary cap. I mean, the presumption is that, oh, I'd spend more if I could. Well, not every team. Most teams are spending less, and they're carrying that cap space. So it's not about the money. It's about having a healthy body on the field, and I think that's what Edelman, he wanted to play. I mean, yeah, the money's fine. It's not like he's making huge money. It's about wanting to play. And I think that's the thing that motivates a guy to take the PED, to get himself back where he can play, where he can compete. Because ultimately, he got the payoff. He has the Super Bowl MVP trophy and the fame and the documentary and the media tour that goes along with it. If he doesn't take that PED last year to speed his recovery from the ACL tear, there's a damn good chance. We're not talking about Julian Edelman right now. There's a damn good chance there's no documentary coming out tonight. There's a damn good chance you don't want him on PMT this week, and Colbert doesn't want him on late night, and everybody else that had him doesn't want him because he didn't win the MVP because he wasn't able to go. So as overall, bargains and rationalizations and deals with the devil go, it was a pretty good deal. It paid off for Julian Edelman.
So what about the other thing you could do is if you were very much against this type of, getting back from injury, taking PEDs, just make the suspension longer, right? it's clear that the risk, like you just said, the calculation that Julian Edelman did said, hey, if I can get an edge to get back on the field, all I got to do is sit 4 games. Sitting September is not that big of a deal when you're talking about a 16-game season that's punishing, and then an extra 3 games or 4 games in January and February. So like baseball, I think baseball is 50 games to start, and then it keeps going up from there. So that's a third of the season. So if you made it, 6 games or 8 games, then now the calculation feels a little different. Now it says, hey, do I really want to take this if I'm going to miss half of a season because of a busted test?
Well, and beyond that, being knocked out of the postseason like baseball does. You serve your suspension and you can't participate in the postseason. And we put that out on Twitter also. 60% said no, they don't want the 4-game suspension and a ban from postseason play. But already the NFL, they won't let you play in the Pro Bowl if you had a PED violation, but they will let you play in the Super Bowl. So they've at least entertained the idea that something's not right with this picture and we need to do something about it, but they haven't gone far enough. And maybe one of the reasons why we don't care as much as we should as fans and as media about these issues, the penalty isn't as strong as it could be or should be. So if we look at the NFL and we think the NFL doesn't really care, why should we? And I think that contributes to this sense of apathy when a guy like Julian Edelman gets a PED violation and we think, well, yeah, he just had a torn ACL. He's doing what he has to do to come back.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. I mean, I don't really know. I told you my honest opinion that coming back from injury does feel a little different, and whether that's right or wrong, you can tell me I'm wrong, and that makes no sense. That's fine. I'm just telling you that it feels different when he's coming back from injury. But the whole thing is an interesting discussion, and I don't know. Can we get a league where everyone can just do whatever they want? It's out there. People talk about maybe making a league where it's just everyone does whatever they want, and we'll see how it goes. I don't think that would be the safest, but there's probably fans out there that would want it.
There are fans out there that want it, and there were players that would line up out the door to play for it. Old school football, hit like they did in the 80s, take whatever you have to take, do whatever you want, like a real-life version of NFL Blitz. Remember that game? That's what it would be.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.